Millionaire's crying twins discovered a hidden compassion that transformed the restaurant forever. Ethan and Emma Moore stood in the dim light of the attic, their hands trembling as they sifted through boxes of forgotten memories. Dust motes swirled around them, each particle a ghost of their past, while the air felt thick with an eerie nostalgia. As they unearthed stacks of letters tied with faded ribbon, a shiver rippled down their spines. These weren't ordinary notes, they were their mother's words, and they seemed to pulse with life. Each letter spoke with the voice of a woman who had poured her heart into her community, a side of her they had never known. How could a woman who had given so much be erased from their memory? "Ethan, this is incredible," Emma whispered, her voice breaking slightly as she unfolded a letter filled with hope. She wanted to help them, not just serve the elites. The words struck Ethan like lightning, igniting a fire of recognition and shame. They had long been trapped within the polished walls of the heart of town, their father's vision clouding any notion of compassion. Could they really become what their mother envisioned? The hesitation hung heavy in the air. Their father would never support a shift towards altruism. To him, it would mean losing everything. That suffocating expectation loomed over them, a relentless weight that crushed their ambition. Yet beneath their fear lay a heavy yearning, a desperate need to break free from the golden chains of wealth. They didn't just want to make their father proud, they wanted to find purpose. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Every time they considered confronting their father, their hearts raced with fear. The thought of revealing their plans felt like jumping into a void, where the weight of his disappointment could crush them entirely. Ethan's mind spiraled into dark recesses where failure meant not just losing the restaurant, but the connection to their mother's legacy. The unease gnawed at them. Could they really change the direction of their lives when every dollar spent kept them comfortable yet unfulfilled? The tension built to a breaking point as they finally shared their ideas with their father. Heated words flew like arrows, and pain masked as anger filled the space. "It's about survival, not charity," he bellowed, his face twisted in rage. Each shout drowned out their fragile hopes, leaving them adrift in a sea of despair. They stood there, helpless, realizing their paternal anchor was now their greatest adversary. Ethan and Emma's hearts raced hotter with each cloud of his disdain, their dreams hanging by a thread, torn between loyalty and love. In that moment, surrounded by the tainted remnants of their childhood and their father's loud rejection, something inside them ignited. Would they surrender, or would they forge ahead, trying to reclaim their mother's dream? As their father's voice faded, a profound anguish settled within their bones. They glanced at one another, resolve sparking behind their fearful eyes. What if this was their moment to finally step away from the shadow of inheritance into the light of purpose? The dimension of their struggle expanded with every heartbeat as the first community meal approached. The stakes were impossibly high, but so was their desperation. Would they be forever trapped in their father's gilded cage, or would they dare to shatter the glass and find freedom? The looming uncertainty rushed over them, filling the air with electric anticipation. The heart of town hung in the balance, its legacy ready to be rewritten. Ethan and Emma stood at the threshold of their shared conviction, the atmosphere around them charged with both fear and a newfound sense of purpose. It was now or never. The first community meal loomed just days away, a tangible manifestation of their mother's forgotten dream. They had envisioned paths diverging from their father's expectations, but the weight of those expectations hung heavily in their minds, blurring their vision of what lay ahead. With every preparatory step, doubt crept in. What if they failed? What if the community they sought to embrace rejected them? Washing away the gilded surface and exposing the raw essence of their restaurant felt akin to tearing down centuries of legacy. The duality of wanting to please their father while preserving their identity reached an unbearable crescendo, and with each passing moment they faced an escalating conflict, internally and with one another. Emma's determination sparked a flurry of ideas, leading the charge in planning logistics, outreach, and menu selection. "We need to connect with everyone, really connect," she insisted, her eyes alight with urgency. Ethan watched her passion, conflicted between admiration for her spirit and fear of the repercussions. "But if they don't come, if he finds out we've wasted resources, it will only feed his worst fears," Ethan cautioned, the ghost of their father's wrath echoing in his mind. Yet, deep down, he recognized the truth Emma reflected back at him, a pathway forward that transcended familial ties. The old restaurant's menus, rich with opulence yet devoid of warmth, didn't capture their mother's essence. Instead of creating a fortress for the elite, they needed to foster an environment that invited everyone in, where hardships would be understood, not overlooked. As they compiled phone numbers, drafted community flyers, and calculated costs, Ethan felt a flicker of excited trepidation. They mobilized resources, seeking donations and forging alliances with local farmers. Each tiny victory fed their resolve, an open invitation to discover warmth, nourishment, and acceptance within the walls that had trapped them for so long. But with each decision, Ethan grappled with the soon-to-come confrontation: courage versus obligation. He stared at their father's portrait hanging in the dining hall, its proud grin now dull under the weight of emotion. Would he see the vision arrestingly clear before him? Or would he continue to validate the oppressive beliefs that had forged his ambition? Then it happened. The pursuit of goodness transformed in an instant. Ethan found himself in a conversation with their father about budget constraints for the upcoming month. Every word felt like a tightrope walk, and every response inked deeper urgency into his chest. He had kept his dreams buried, but now they surged forward like a wild beast untamed. "Dad, there's something we've been working on," Ethan began, his voice steadier than he felt. "We want to host a meal for the community, not just to serve them, but to truly integrate and understand their needs." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with a tension that threatened to ripple out of control. His father's reaction was immediate and fierce. "This nonsense will ruin us. You think they care about you? They'll come only to take advantage." Each word cut deep, but Ethan stood firm, no longer the scared child overshadowed by authority. "I think they will see us for who we truly are, Dad. This isn't just about the restaurant anymore. It's about honoring Mom's legacy. We have to try." In that moment, a realization clicked. Ethan was essentially opposing the man who had defined his entire existence. The clash between ambition and familial loyalty felt insurmountable. Yet, as he recovered from his father's disbelief, Ethan's resolve crystallized. His identity was now on the line, rooted in the desire to shape an impactful future rather than perpetuate inherited fear. With Emma by his side, both were forging an unfamiliar path, one that stretched ahead into the dark of uncertainty. But they could no longer afford to relent to shadows of the past. They were destined to become the catalysts of change, breaking the chains that bound them. As they stepped back from another heated exchange, the sense of impending conflict loomed larger than ever. Would they carry out their plan, regardless of the familial fallout? Only time would reveal whether the heartbeat of the heart of town would amplify with the rhythm of community, or fall silent under pressure. But one thing was clear. They were in a race against not just their father's expectations, but their own doubts. Tomorrow's reckoning awaited them, and with every heartbeat the tension mounted, propelling them forward faster than ever before. Would they find strength in their journey, or would they falter in the face of their past? As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan and Emma sensed that their moment was almost upon them. Ethan awoke with a gnawing pressure in his chest. The quiet of the early morning was underscored by the anticipation of the day ahead. He and Emma had committed to their vision, yet doubts lurked in every corner of his mind, casting shadows over their efforts. He pulled on his jacket, forcing himself to shake off the uncomfortable feeling. Today was about courage, about facing not only their father's expectations, but his own insecurities. Every step towards the restaurant felt heavier than the last. As they arrived, the familiar scent of polished wood and old recipes wafted through the air, a reminder of the legacy they were attempting to redefine. They had pored over the menu, selecting dishes that paid homage to their mother's cooking but spoke to the new mission they were undertaking. It wasn't just food, it was an emotional offering, and the thought terrified him. With Emma's steadfast presence beside him, the pair got to work, moving tables and chairs to create an inviting space. Ethan's hands trembled slightly as he rearranged the furniture. It was more than just a physical transformation. This was the manifestation of their hopes and fears. Each piece they adjusted carried the weight of their decisions. Each chair was a reminder of the community they wished to serve, yet also of the scrutiny they would face. They set up the kitchen, pulled together ingredients, and finalized the details. But underneath it all, Ethan was preoccupied by one thought. How would their father react if he found out they had gone through with it? What if he decided to come and shut them down? His mind circulated through potential confrontations, each one more daunting than the last. As the day unfolded, they began to receive messages from people expressing interest. The initial pile of responses was small, yet it stirred a flicker of hope within him. Maybe they were not as alone as they feared. Ethan recalled his father's disdainful words, framing them as a challenge to which Ethan now felt a fragile defiance. Would they really care about us? He wondered, just for a moment before his determination resurfaced. Emma's voice broke through his reverie. "Ethan, look at this!" Her enthusiasm washed over him like a warm breeze, but he remained hesitant. "We have a few local farmers interested in donating fresh produce. This could make a huge difference." Her excitement was contagious, but hesitation anchored him in reality. "That's great, Emma, but what if they back out, or if it all falls apart? Our plans are too delicate to assume success," he replied, trying desperately to voice his doubts without extinguishing her spark. She paused and then turned to him, her eyes piercing through his worry. "But what if we succeed? What if we truly connect?" Her question hung in the air. Ethan's chest tightened with the weight of unspoken fears and desires. Was it possible they might bridge the gap between their aspirations and reality? They checked the makeshift dining area one last time, swapping excited glances at the sight of hopeful guests. But deep within him, anxiety churned, mixing with a sense of purpose. This was their moment for growth, for transformation, not just for their restaurant, but for Ethan himself. He understood now that it was no longer about upholding a legacy that was never truly his, but about crafting a new narrative, one where they could reclaim their mother's vision. With a deep breath, he stepped outside to view the space that had once felt like a battleground of adolescence and authority. The sun hung low in the sky, illuminating the path ahead. Amidst the uncertainty, a quiet determination anchored him. He was ready to take ownership of his life, to confront not just his father, but the echoes of doubt within himself. Could he handle the consequences of their choices? As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the street, Ethan felt a knot in his gut. Today was the precursor to everything they had fought for, and he was painfully aware that failure loomed just as heavily as success. Moments later, as the door creaked, he heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching. The small crowd began to gather, cautious but curious. Every heartbeat marked a tension he couldn't ignore, igniting a nervous flutter within him. Would this be the beginning of their journey, or would it all collapse like a house of cards? But as he took his position at the entrance, the realization dawned. This was not just about them anymore. The world outside was starting to become a part of their narrative. And then he saw familiar figures in the distance. His father, flanked by a couple of his old friends, was looming closer, purpose etched onto his face. Ethan's heart raced. This was the confrontation he had dreaded, the moment that would define not just their mother's dream, but the very essence of his identity. Would he stand tall in the face of familial scrutiny, or would he buckle under the weight of expectations? The answer awaited him just beyond the threshold. Ethan's breath hitched as his father approached, flanked by the casual confidence of his friends. The previous excitement of welcoming the crowd now dulled to a clarity, where every responsibility felt as palpable as the wood of the restaurant floor under his feet. He stood at the threshold, anchored by the heavy expectations of their family legacy and compounded by the sudden intensity of this moment. "Ethan!" His father's voice rang out with a tremor that veered dangerously close to disappointment. "I didn't think you would actually go through with this." Ethan felt the weight of those words settle as he forced himself to maintain eye contact. How many times had he heard his father's dismissive tone hold the power to undermine him? Today he could not afford to break under it. Determination momentarily wrestled with fear as he replied, "We are, and we're committed to doing this our way." Ethan's voice, steadier than he felt, echoed slightly in the stillness around them. It was a declaration, shaped by the vulnerable courage he was slowly learning to embrace. His father shifted his weight, exchanging a glance with his friends that seemed to convey a mix of concern and judgment. "You know this isn't how I envisioned your future. You're throwing away everything we worked for." With every word, Ethan felt the stir of deep-seated tension crackling between them. For a fleeting second, memory washed over him. He recalled the long hours in the kitchen, the intense discussions about recipes, and the brief but warm moments spent with their mother, moments that somehow felt like they were being erased under his father's shadow. "Dad, this isn't just about family tradition. It's about honoring what Mom created in a way that resonates with us." His father's eyes narrowed. "You think you can shape that into something more? This is risking everything. You're treading dangerous waters." Dangerous waters. Ethan felt each word like stone. Wasn't every endeavor he had taken since entering adulthood already a dance with danger? As exhilarating as it was terrifying, standing up to his father now became a necessity, not just a mere act of defiance. "I'm not risking what we built. I'm reshaping it. Don't you see? It's more than just what you had." The ground beneath him sat firm, grounding the tackling weight of his convictions. He wasn't solely challenging his father's beliefs, but unearthing buried truths about himself. An inner strength flickered to life, nudging at him. Was it possible to redefine his identity that had long been tethered to familiar approval? Ethan's heart pounded as he glanced around the restaurant. The faces of his friends and neighbors slowly began to fill the space. He could see anticipation in their eyes, reflecting the hope of a fresh start. Each smile, every reassuring nod seemed to validate his internal struggle, emboldening him to push forward. "People are interested in us, Dad. They want to connect with what we have to offer." The words flowed more naturally now, a cascade he struggled to temper. "We can create something special here. It's time to embrace a legacy that includes us." His father's brows furrowed, and for a heartbeat it felt like the weight of the world rested heavily between them. Ethan wrestled with the urge to look away. Failure loomed like a shadow, threatening to consume the moment. Yet battling through that instinct, he maintained his stance, ready to defend the future he envisioned. A silence surrounded them. Curiosity darkened the faces from the crowd, and Ethan shivered as he felt their anticipation merging with his own uncertainty. The opening of the restaurant could either be the foundation of his independence or the catalyst for his father's wrath. The choice of how this story concluded lay solely within him. His father opened his mouth to respond, but the moment hung in the air, charged and unyielding. What would he say? Ethan's heart raced, ready to either claim his identity or become trapped once more under the weight of another's expectations. As everything fell quiet, a whispered promise of defiance echoed in his heart. This was only the beginning of who he was becoming. Just as he readied himself to speak again, a sudden commotion echoed from the back of the crowd, a desperate shout piercing through the tension. The atmosphere shifted instantly, drawing Ethan's attention away. What now? The urgency sparked another surge of uncertainty that rippled through him, raising new questions about the evening's unfolding. Ethan turned swiftly, bracing himself for whatever was about to challenge the fragile balance he had only just begun to establish. The chaotic noise from the back of the crowd drew Ethan's attention like a magnet. A knot of anxious faces crowded together, and despite the smiles of camaraderie he had seen moments earlier, a wave of trepidation washed over the room. He was caught between two worlds, the expectations of his father and the burgeoning hope of his own dreams. "Ethan!" The voice belonged to Sarah, one of his closest friends, a familiar anchor in this storm. Her urgency cut through the thick air, urging him to step forward. "You need to see this." Before he could respond, Sarah pushed through the gathering, leading the way. Ethan exchanged a quick glance with his father, who wore a mask of disbelief and concern. The divide between them felt insurmountable. Ethan could sense that this moment might be critical, not just for him, but for the fragile relationship with his family legacy. As he joined the throng, his heart thumped a frantic rhythm. The shouts intensified, and the gap between his aspirations and his father's expectations seemed to widen dangerously. Pushing deeper into the crowd, he struggled to keep his ground against the rising tide of uncertainty. "An accident?" Ethan questioned, his voice breaking through the din as he reached the center of the commotion. He found a small group huddled around a table, where two toddlers sat in high chairs, their faces glistening with tears. The scent of spilled juice lingered, and the children's cries amplified the tension in the room. The vibrant atmosphere built around the restaurant felt shaky, its foundation now threatened by this unforeseen moment. "Ethan, they were just left here. We don't know where their parents are," Sarah explained, the urgency in her voice laced with sympathy. Ethan knelt, gazing into the tear-filled eyes of the twins. Instantly, a rush of bewilderment flooded over him. He had entered this night armed with the ambition to prove himself, but now, in the face of raw innocence and vulnerability, a different type of weight settled upon his shoulders. This wasn't about legacy or pride. It was about connection and the human experience. His mind raced. How could he turn this unfortunate moment into something meaningful? The restaurant was supposed to be a place where patrons shared stories around the table, where food intertwined with laughter. Yet here stood an opportunity to embody the compassion he wanted his establishment to represent. What if this was a moment of connection, not just with the patrons, but with the community? "Let's get them a drink," Ethan murmured, already planning. He shot a glance toward the bar area, just a few steps away. And we need to call someone. His heart twisted as he realized this was all part of a greater narrative. His own transformation from just a son living in the shadow of his father's legacy to a leader capable of bringing warmth and care to the very community that had watched him grow. The twins' cries softened in response to Ethan's soothing tone, and with that he felt something shift within himself. The tension from before began to dissipate, replaced by an urge to take charge, to actively shape this moment into something greater than himself. "Sarah, grab a stack of napkins," he ordered, rallying his friend into action. "And someone call the authorities to check on these kids' parents. We can set aside our stress for a moment and help." And as he directed the people around him, the crowd began to take notice. A palpable shift occurred. The atmosphere strengthened with compassion, and people began to gather, offering reassurance to the children. The warmth of community flickered like a spark, igniting the very mission Ethan had envisioned for his restaurant. "See, this is it," he breathed to himself, a smile creeping onto his lips as realization dawned upon him. The restaurant could be a sanctuary for more than just food. It could be a refuge, a place where connections were forged, an embodiment of the values he had been yearning to reclaim from his past. But then came his father's voice, low yet sharp, slicing through his moment of clarity. "Ethan, this isn't how we operate. You're risking everything." Ethan's gaze snapped back to the crowd, intertwining the supportive faces of his friends and neighbors with the agitation simmering in his father's tone. Could he find a way to make both worlds coexist? To ensure that his journey was defined by empathy rather than legacy? The tension crackled again as he stood on the precipice of realization. The first significant test of his vision for the restaurant had just been laid bare, and he felt a new conviction stirring within him, ready for the uncertainty ahead. What would happen if he embraced the demands of this moment and faced not only the crowd, but also his father's outcry? How could he channel the energy ignited in the room toward a path that honored both his vision and the unresolved issues with his father? The heartbeat of realization echoed in his chest, a resonant question lingering in the air. Was it possible to redefine their legacy to include compassion, resilience, and genuine care, even if it was met with resistance? As the noise faded into a haunting silence that hugged the room tightly, Ethan's resolve grew stronger. The night had only just begun, and whether he would succumb to pressure or embrace the chaos ahead would soon be revealed. With the echoes of his father's disapproval hanging in the air, a potent blend of anxiety and determination surged within Ethan. This was not the moment to retreat. It was an invitation to step forward, to define himself beyond the tough expectations of legacy. He could feel the weight of potential pressing down on him, a chance to carve out a new path, even if it meant walking against the current. "Focus," he whispered to himself, taking a steadying breath. What had started as chaos was pivoting to something profound. He glanced at the toddlers, their tears now giving way to curiosity as they sensed the shift in energy around them. He pressed his palms against the table to ground himself, feeling the rough wood beneath his fingers, a stark reminder of the roots he wished to deepen in this community. "Okay, everyone, let's get some fresh juice for the twins," he declared, his authoritative tone surprising even himself. A few patrons stepped up, drawn into the whirlwind nearby. A kind-hearted waitress rushed to the bar, filling cups with colorful juices, while others resumed their conversations with a softer edge, their earlier anxieties temporarily forgotten. "Maybe I should have thought things through a bit more," Ethan mused, catching a glimpse of his father still observing from a distance. The contrast was stark. Where Ethan saw opportunity, his father still clung to the rules established to protect their family's reputation. The sharpness of his father's gaze unsettled him, but rather than drawing back, Ethan steeled himself against the pressure. "Why do I care so much about his approval?" he pondered, grappling with the conflict that swirled inside. He had spent years trying to prove himself worthy of his family's legacy, yet here he was, navigating the aftermath of an unexpected crisis, a crisis that revealed a deeper aspiration. "Let's make sure they're comfortable," he called out to Sarah, who was organizing the napkins and comforting the children. "Can you sit with them for a bit? Keep them entertained? I'll take care of the adults," he added, already envisioning ways to turn their shared experience into a broader narrative that included everyone. As he moved to gather the nearby patrons, he found a spark of creativity igniting in him. "What if we turned this into a little party for them?" he suggested, the idea tumbling from his lips before he could second-guess himself. "We can celebrate their presence here," he continued, gauging the audience with a cautious grin. "You know how many families come here, right? Let's show them that this restaurant is a safe space." Some looked skeptical, others intrigued. The atmosphere was shifting. Ethan felt energized by the possibility. The laughter and shared joy that flooded his memories from childhood began to resurface. This was what his family's establishment had stood for once: joy, laughter, and connection. "All right, listen up," Ethan began, looking into the eyes of those around him, each one filled with curiosity. "We're going to have some fun. Let's not let this moment pass us by." His voice grew louder, the rhythm of words charged with enthusiasm. "How about an impromptu game? Let's bring the little ones some balloons, and afterward, for every drink sold tonight, we donate a portion to help children in need." As the words tumbled into the crowd, he could see the spark of engagement flicker to life. "Just think, each of you can help create a difference." A wave of chatter flowed through the crowd, discussions igniting about the donations. And in that moment, Ethan realized something crucial. He wasn't just a vessel for a legacy. He was becoming the architect of a new one, defined by compassion, creativity, and collaboration. "Ethan, this is reckless!" His father's voice cut through again, his tone still tainted with disapproval. Yet for the first time, Ethan felt less affected by it. "You're compromising our standards for what? A fleeting moment?" Ethan paused, locking eyes with the crowd who began to rally around him. "No, Dad," he countered confidently. "I'm redefining what it means to belong here, to serve this community. Doesn't our restaurant deserve to represent more than just food?" His father's expression shifted, from disapproval to a flicker of contemplation. Was he finally allowing room for doubt, a reconsideration of the rigid standards he had imposed? Ethan's heart picked up speed. This moment could pivot him towards something greater. But as the crowd buzzed and laughter began to bubble, he knew the real challenge lay ahead. Could he truly carve this new path without losing himself or his father's respect? As tensions swirled amidst the rising revelry, Ethan felt a palpable chasm stretching before him. Every heartbeat echoed a deeper question. Could their relationship withstand this transformation? Just then, the sudden sound of laughter met the low murmurs, a reminder that the night was still young and the challenge ahead was far from over. The question loomed. Would Ethan find the courage to bring his father along as they ventured into this uncharted territory? The vibrant atmosphere enveloped Ethan as patrons began mingling, laughter echoing off the walls like music infused with promise. Children's delight filled the corners of the room, their balloon animals bobbing happily in the air, creating a spectacle he only dared to dream of moments ago. Yet beneath this joyful chaos, a swelling tide of uncertainty churned within him. "Was I right?" he questioned as he surveyed the scene. His father's disapproval loomed, a specter that haunted his every thought. Was it too much too soon? Each jubilant laugh felt like a challenge to his instincts. He had long been trained to tread carefully in the world of familial duty, but tonight he was forging a new identity, one where the pursuit of joy could coexist with responsibility. Ethan drifted closer to the bar, where Sarah was mixing drinks and chatting with customers. Her easy smile exuded warmth, a stark contrast to his inner turmoil. "How's it going over here?" asked, forcing a buoyant tone. Great, she beamed, wiping her hands on her apron. The kids are loving it, and people seem interested in the donations. You really turned this around. Pride swelled within him momentarily. He was doing it. He was transforming the space into something more than a family diner. This was a sanctuary for connection, where laughter and community thrived beyond the confines of traditional expectations. Yet a familiar pang of doubt whispered in the back of his mind. What if this was nothing more than an illusion, a temporary getaway from the looming reality of his family legacy? Hey, I just wanted to say, Sarah caught him off guard, breaking into his spiraling thoughts. This feels really different. It's special. You've shown us that we can be more than just servers and customers here. Thanks, Ethan replied, though his mind raced ahead. Do you really think it matters? Absolutely. People are looking for connection now more than ever. You've opened the door. Her words struck a chord, resonating with a deep-seated yearning that had long been buried. But the reality hurt. Could he maintain such intimacy and connection while adhering to his father's rigid vision? The thought gnawed at him. Does that mean I'm sacrificing some of my family's core values? He wondered. It felt wrong to pit one against the other, yet the confrontation with his father loomed large, waiting to unfold. Feeling restless, Ethan made his way to the back of the restaurant, where the noise faded, leaving only the steam from the kitchen and the low hum of distant laughter. Here he could breathe, collect his thoughts. What if I could convince him, he pondered. What if he could demonstrate this new vision to his father, show him that change was not synonymous with loss, but rather an opportunity to evolve? The heaviness of the night pressed on his shoulders. A plan began to take shape. He needed to approach his father, to communicate this vision clearly, to be the bridge between legacy and transformation. But how, he questioned, pulling himself back from the encroaching doubt. Just then his phone buzzed, a message from his father flashing across the screen. We need to talk. Ethan felt his stomach drop. The weight of impending confrontation lay heavily on his chest. The laughter faded, replaced by a surging tide of apprehension. This was the crucial moment, the divide between clinging to the past and stepping boldly into uncertain territory. Ethan inhaled deeply and resolved to meet his father, knowing that tonight's joy would either bolster his cause or shatter it completely. With each step toward the anticipated conversation, he felt the fire of determination growing. He was not merely seeking approval, he was building a foundation of something greater, if only he could articulate at truth to the one who mattered most. As he drew near, the noise of the restaurant faded into a muffled backdrop, replaced by the thunderous beat of his heart. The time had come to confront the very legacy he had struggled against and redefine what his family's restaurant could truly signify. What awaited him on the other side of that discussion? Would it be acceptance, or would it lead to an irrevocable rift? Ethan paused at the threshold of the back office, the air thick with tension as the door loomed before him like a portal to the unknown. His heart raced, his mind racing with counterarguments to the disapproval he anticipated. He took one last deep breath, steeling himself for the conversation that could reshape his future. As he pushed the door open, he found his father sitting behind a desk cluttered with paperwork, receipts, invoices, and schedules that spoke of tradition, stability, and the weight of expectations. Howard glanced up, his expression unreadable, a mix of concern and scrutiny laden with years of unspoken expectations. "Ethan," he said, his voice steady but cool, "what's this all about? I hear things are different." "Yes, they are," Ethan replied, the words spilling out with an urgency he hadn't intended. "I've been thinking about how we can be more than just a diner. I want to create a space where people feel welcome, where we can give back to the community." His father's brow creased slightly, a subtle sign of his irritation. And you think a few decorations and some balloons can change what this place stands for? This is a family business. We have a reputation to maintain, a formula that works. In that moment, Ethan felt a wave of frustration. Why did his father equate change with failure? But it doesn't have to be one or the other. We can honor our legacy while also evolving. Look at how people are responding tonight. He gestured vaguely toward the laughter and warmth spilling from the dining area. Howard shook his head slowly. You're letting sentiment cloud your judgment. There's risk in this kind of change, risk that can drive us into the ground. Ethan clenched his fists, battling against a flood of emotions that threatened to spill over. But what if we don't take risks? We'll become irrelevant. People don't just want food, they want experiences now, moments that matter. The old man leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, the skepticism thick around him. You think you know better than years of experience? How can you be so sure this isn't just a phase? Each word felt like a dagger, but Ethan held his ground, determined to convey what this meant. Because I've seen it, Dad. People are longing for connection. They want to laugh and share moments that mean something. We can be that place. We can create a community. Time hung heavy in the air as his father's silence enveloped them. Ethan wrestled with insecurities, fearing this could shatter his dream before it had a chance to live. Would he back down? Would he concede to tradition out of fear of his father's judgment? Were you not tired of seeing our restaurant as just a source of income? Ethan pressed, his voice shaking with conviction. I want it to be so much more. I want it to matter. Howard opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again, as if weighing Ethan's words against something far deeper than the surface of their discussion. The walls seemed to close in. He was both standing on the brink of failure and an exciting new beginning. This was a crucial moment. It was not merely about the direction of a restaurant, but a defining clash of philosophies. Could he break free of the chains that bound him to his father's vision? Could he forge ahead into the light of his own aspirations? The silence stretched painfully before a new thought sparked within Ethan. What if I could show you, he ventured. Give me 3 months to prove that my approach can work. If it fails, I'll step back into the role you expect. For the first time, a flicker of curiosity sparked in his father's eyes. The challenge hung in the air, ripe with potential for both risk and revelation. 3 months, Howard echoed slowly. And what if it works? Ethan's heartbeat surged. Then we can redefine what the legacy truly means together. We can create something that lasts, something we both can be proud of. As the weight of the proposal settled between them, Ethan felt the air crackle with tension. His father was calculating, weighing the chance for evolution against the comfort of the past. What would he decide? Would Howard take a chance on his son's vision? Or would he reinforce the barriers that had always kept them apart? Ethan's mind raced with possibilities, the future teetering back and forth on the edge of uncertainty, as his father leaned forward, deep in thought. In that moment, everything hung in the balance, the outcome of their family's legacy resting just beyond the precipice of change. Would Ethan's dreams ignite a new path, or would he fall short of the mark, locking his ambitions away forever? Ethan's pulse quickened as he registered the weight of his father's deliberation. 3 months felt like both an eternity and a blink, a fleeting chance to reshape not only the diner, but a vital piece of his identity. Silently, he mapped out the first steps, while imagining the transformation that could unfold. The colors, the laughter, the thrumming energy of a community coming alive through shared meals and connections. Howard finally exhaled, the tension in the room palpable. You better not underestimate what's at stake here. Losing is not an option. His voice was firm, yet the edge of uncertainty hinted that he was considering it, perhaps even hoping for the possibility of success. As Ethan nodded, he felt a flicker of gratitude for this opportunity. Deep down, he knew he was ready for the challenge. He had been preparing for this moment despite his father's doubts. Transforming the diner wasn't just a task, it was his chance to step into his own skin, to validate the dreams that had hounded him beneath layers of familial expectations. The first step quickly emerged in his mind. He needed a plan. He thrust himself into strategizing every element, doing research late into the night as hands grew weary holding on to concepts that bristled with potential. He scribbled ideas during his breaks at the diner, imagining innovative menu items, immersive events, and social media campaigns that would entice a new clientele. But this fervor also brought its doubts. Would people even respond? He recalled the faces of regular patrons, familiar but not particularly enthusiastic. Would they embrace change, or would it alienate the very customers who had supported them for years? Continuing to feed his anxiety, he watched videos of other successful restaurant transformations, dissecting what worked and what didn't. He mentally cataloged the secrets behind their thriving communities: authenticity, energy, and a palpable love for food. Safeguarding these values became his guiding principles. Eventually, a solid plan materialized, empowering Ethan with a sense of agency he had never felt before. He envisioned introducing themed nights that resonated with diverse influences: a taco night, vintage diner evenings, and even guest chef events showcasing local talent. All centered around the idea that the diner wasn't just a place to eat, it was a hub for experiences and memories. With a sense of urgency, he gathered a group of staff willing to embrace change, sharing his ideas passionately. "We have an opportunity to bring something new to this community," he enthused, leaning in so they grasped the spirit of his vision. One by one, their excitement began to build, the team's energy surging alongside Ethan's as they genuinely engaged with the tasks ahead. In those enchanted moments of collaboration, he felt a heady mix of fear and exhilaration. Standing shoulder to shoulder with his colleagues as they brainstormed, painted walls, and crafted menus, Ethan began to see the stirrings of something remarkable. He was not just revitalizing the diner, he was discovering his own leadership potential, his ability to inspire. However, the transition wasn't devoid of challenges. As Ethan remained dedicated to his vision, whispers of doubt crept in from some of the older staff members, familiar faces whose skepticism loomed large. "This isn't what we do here," they'd assert, retreating to their old routines, resistant to change. Each dismissal stung, gnawing at him, but he pressed forward, drawing strength from the team members who believed in him. He could feel the urgency intensifying within him. Failure was no longer an option, but if he was going to succeed, he needed to summon more grit and conviction. Days turned into weeks, and as the 3-month deadline loomed closer, his anxiety surged. What if he miscalculated? What if his father was right? Deep within, Ethan wrestled with fears that stopped him cold, but he composed himself through each encounter, harnessing the lessons learned along the way. The night of the grand reveal would be the litmus test, a chance to showcase his evolution. With every ounce of strength, he prepared, ready to combine passion, hard work, and the hope that had been ignited within him to confront the most formidable challenge yet: winning over his father and the community. As Ethan looked around at the revamped diner, ready to unveil his vision, insistent thoughts plagued him. Would they embrace this new direction? Would Howard recognize the change and accept him as a leader? And then, with the weight of expectation pressing down, Ethan stepped forward to face the unpredictable tides of transition, the surprising outcomes waiting in the shadows. There, in the midst of culinary artistry and emotional stakes, he felt the moment approaching, the culminating realization of his dreams intertwined with the pressure of legacy. But did he possess enough courage to navigate through the judgment awaiting him and ensure that the future he fought for was not just personal, but meaningful? As the grand reveal approached, the atmosphere inside the heart of town pulsed with a blend of excitement and trepidation. The once familiar walls that had cradled a singular legacy now glimmered with fresh paint, vibrant decor, and the aroma of newly imagined dishes wafting through the air. Ethan positioned himself at the entrance, heart racing with a mix of anticipation and fear as he prepared to embrace this moment of truth. He glanced over the space, witnessing a kaleidoscope of guests mingling eagerly. Friends and family members filled the tables, anticipation painted across their faces. The community Ethan longed to engage with was right before him. This wasn't merely about food anymore. It embodied the very essence of connection, warmth, and togetherness that his mother had forever envisioned. His heart thumped louder as he recalled his father, who had taken a seat at the back corner of the restaurant, his expression inscrutable. Ethan doubted he'd find approval there, but today was about celebrating progress. Today was about showcasing the transformative power of community, regardless of what that corner held. As Ethan approached the microphone, the room quieted, eyes turning their way. The flickering lights overhead added an air of intimacy to the moment. He opened his mouth, his voice steady despite the wavering inside. "Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight to witness this rebirth of the heart of town. We are no longer just a restaurant. We are a home for stories, laughter, and shared experiences." His confidence began to build as he linked eyes with individuals, each one an embodiment of the support that had carried him here. The laughter and connection he envisioned were alive. "We've crafted a new menu that honors our past while embracing our future. The dishes you will experience tonight reflect not just food, but the stories of our community. When you dine here, you're feeding not just your bodies, but your souls." Applause echoed throughout the space, igniting in him a rush of exhilaration. The thought that they could truly reshape the experience together resonated deep within him. And as the first plates were served, snippets of joy erupted. The clattering of forks and joyous conversations provided a foundation for everything they had hoped to achieve. Across the room, Ethan stole a glance at his father. Howard's demeanor remained stoic, his expression still veiled in skepticism. Each clink of a glass was a commentary on the tension that persisted, or so Ethan believed. However, it took every ounce of determination not to retreat into that familiar space of seeking approval. He had come too far, he wouldn't falter now. With the night fully underway, Ethan moved between tables, connecting with patrons and hearing their stories. Patrons smiled as they savored dishes inspired by local farmers and ingredients. Each taste a heartfelt homage to the very community his mother had sought to serve. The children's laughter rang loudly, a reminder that the purpose they strived for was materializing right before their eyes. As the evening reached its pinnacle, a surprise toast, the crowd united in recognition of the evening's significance. Ethan stood, heart swelling, as patrons lifted their glasses. "To the heart of town," they cheered. And there, in that cascade of voices lifting into the air, Ethan felt reborn. It wasn't merely a restaurant anymore, it was an evolution of identity, a reclaiming of their legacy, and an embodiment of change. He would not merely exist in the shadow of his father, he was forging his own path, resilient, compassionate, and steadfast. But the biggest test awaited him. He sought out his father amid the joy, summoning every ounce of courage. With each step, he felt the weight of familial expectations looming over him, pressing down like a storm cloud. Howard caught his eye, and their gazes locked, fierce. Ethan's heart raced, but it was no longer out of fear. "Dad," Ethan began, the openness of vulnerability reflected in his voice. "I'm so grateful you're here tonight. This space isn't just about my dreams. It's about a vision we can all share, one that respects the values you've instilled in me while ushering in new traditions that resonate with the community. I want to invite you into this journey, not as my father, but as a collaborator and a new partner in shaping our legacy." The two men stood there, surrounded by an energetic room alive with laughter and camaraderie. For a brief moment, silence ebbed as the gravity of Ethan's words hung in the air. And then it happened. Howard uncrossed his arms, the rigidity releasing ever so slightly, as a flicker of recognition ignited in his eyes. There was contemplation, hesitation, and then a deep exhalation that seemed to diffuse the years of tension. The walls around their relationship began to soften, just a fraction, revealing a new path of potential. "You've clearly put hard work and thought into this," Howard admitted, his voice steadier now. "I see the community's energy, and maybe—" The words hung, as uncertainty still swirled, but the course was shifting. Ethan felt a wave of relief, but also a determination to keep forging ahead. "Dad, it's not just about us anymore. It's about everyone coming together. We can redefine what this legacy means, not as a burden, but a gift," he urged, longing for Howard to understand how their bond could evolve amidst newfound purpose. Richard nodded slowly, absorbing the transformation unfolding around him. Whether he embraced this change or maintained reservations, Ethan understood he had achieved what he set out to do. He had taken a leap into the unknown, emerging as a force of change rooted in compassion. The dynamic of their future started to take shape. Ethan felt solid confidence bloom within him as he realized the legacy was no longer confined to familial shadows. It had grown expansive, enveloping his aspirations, the community's spirit, and the vibrant heart of a new vision for the heart of town. As the night deepened, laughter filled the air, punctuated by joyful renditions of patrons. The memories forged in that space would be etched in history, the beginning of something profound, anchored in purpose and redefined by the courage to elevate compassion. And so the journey began, standing at the precipice of a new dawn, armed with lessons learned and an authentic new identity. Ethan was no longer just a name tied to legacy. He was a leader, a visionary, the heart of a community. Don't wait even one more second to share this journey with your friends. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help reach those who crave connection. Comment below to share your reactions or theories about this transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, so we can grow and flourish together. This is the moment to show your support.